WCSR. This is our annual Chargers Roundtable 2015, brought to you by Coach B's Driving School, Performance Automotive, the Jack Smith Agency, Randy's Auto Body, and the Hillsdale Travel Center. Guys, I don't know, is this like the fifth or sixth time we've done this?
Oh, I think it's more than that. I remember doing this, Andy, in 2000. We did it for sure in 2008 because that was the year everyone was panicked over Mark Nicolay graduating. And what are we going to do with this Weatherhead kid who we've never heard of that apparently is our quarterback who went on to set almost every record we have?
He turned out to be halfway decent, didn't he? It's been since 2008, huh?
At least, and we might have done it in 07, but 08 for sure. I remember that very well.
Let me introduce everybody, and then we'll talk to Kat here. Brad Monastiere is the Assistant Athletic Director and Sports Information Director at Hillsdale College. Hello, Brad.
Hi, Andy. Thanks for having me.
Kat Torres is a junior at Hillsdale College. She works in the sports department and does some video work as well. And you can see an interview that she did with Otter on the Hillsdale Charger website right now. Hi, Kat.
Hi. Thanks for having me.
Jim Eckhardt, some of you have heard of, 40-plus years in the booth, and we'll talk more about him coming up. Hi, Jimmy.
Hey, buddy. How are you doing, my man?
Did you already make it to Nadge and back for dinner?
No, actually, we had it at my house.
You cooked tonight?
Well, I ate.
Yeah, okay. That's what I thought.
I did my part.
Dan Bisher has done away games with us for several years, and this year he will be doing the Charger video feed on the World Wide Web. Dano, how are you?
Outstanding, Mike. How you doing?
Get some. There's the old Marine right there. You can hear the enthusiasm. We'll also be talking to Andy Losick a little bit later on as well. Running our Periscope tonight is Sam Brown. Say hi, Sam.
Hey.
You gotta be louder than that. We're a bunch of loudmouths on this show. You gotta be louder than that. And I think Martin Peterson might be coming a little bit later on as well. He's going to be doing the away games with us this year as well, and some of the home ones too. So we'll have Martin Peterson a little bit later on. And again, Andy Losick from ChargerBlue.com. This is our Charger Roundtable because, guys, according to my calendar, we have Charger football Saturday night at Frank Muddy Waters Stadium.
I heard that.
Against Findlay.
I heard that.
So
it's not a vicious rumor.
We need to get ready. we got to get ready for the season. Kat's with us. I met Kat a couple of times last year up at the sports department, and she's been a really nice addition for their staff over there. You've had a chance to talk to Coach Otterbein a couple of times, and obviously you're around the players and you know them. You know, we'll just lay the cards all out on the table, guys. The team is not expected to do well, at least according to the conference, right? They were preseason ranked number 6 in their side of the division. I don't think a lot of things expect big things from this Charger football team. But when you talk to the coach and some of the players, Cap, what kind of a vibe do you get in terms of their expectations for the year?
I mean, it seems like it's a step in a new direction. I think it's much more positive outlook on everything that's happened compared to how last year went. I think the motivation definitely decreased as the season went on, I feel. And so this year I think they just have a lot more hope and they have a lot more belief that the talent that they have is going to get them where they need to be. So.
Yeah, I think that it's tough to have a losing season when you're used to being competitive and used to winning, and they lost some close games. They lost a couple others that weren't so close, and that's hard over an 11-game season. You're talking about a 3-month period of time to try to stay emotionally on top of everything, and that's tough for anybody. And we usually think of Hillsdale College kids as being really mentally tough, so even for them it's been a challenge, hasn't it, Kat?
Yeah, definitely. I think it can be kind of mentally draining just being a student, obviously, and the tradition of football at Hillsdale, I think, can put a certain amount of pressure on an athlete.
Well, that's something you can talk about, too, because obviously in addition to your stuff in the sports department, you've been a track athlete at Hillsdale College, and, you know, a lot of people have this idea of football players as meatheads, you know, and that sort of thing, but the bottom line is, at Hillsdale College, you know this as a student athlete yourself, you can't be a meathead. You got to go to class, and you've got to study, and you've got to stay on top of that, and it's a big-time challenge, especially here at Hillsdale, isn't it?
Yes, definitely. I think with track, the word that we focus on, and it's on my shirt right now, it says, like, relentless, and
right.
Also as well as its excellence, and I think that all of our sports team focus on those types of things. It's excellence in everything that you do, all the way through when you wake up in the morning, until you go to bed at night, probably after studying, after a long day, after practice, after lifting. I think that the football team really has a lot they've put all their cards into the fact that they have a tradition and they have focus and they have that excellence, and they know that all the guys on that field are putting in 100% in all the aspects of what they do, and so they trust each other, and I think that that's something that's really important going forward. So
it's not something we talk about a lot, Brad, and this will be the last time that I bring it up, but I still want to talk to Kat a little bit about this too. But not only did you have a losing season last year, but you had multiple players, some of them starters, get suspended, and that's something that we're not used to at Hillsdale College. It's not a thing that happens on the regularity that you see at a lot of other campuses. What kind of a mental toll did that take on the team last year? I mean, you were on campus and you were around that when that happened. What was the reaction among the other players, and kind of what lessons have they been able to learn from what happened last year with the suspensions?
I think that it shows that we are all human.
Right.
And I think that that is really something that's important when it comes to a team dynamic, because we all hold ourselves to a really high standard, and we hold each other to a really high standard at this school in college, no matter if you're an athlete or not. And so I think that although it was a mistake, and I think that that could make some of the players not respect other players for what happened, but I think that it just shows, it kind of allowed everyone to take a deep breath and be like, okay, we can make mistakes, but we can come back from it. So I think that it was something that wasn't obviously ideal, but they made the most of the situation.
Yeah,
so.
Well put. Kat Torres joins us, and we'll get to the whole group in just a minute. You're listening to the Charger Roundtable 2015, Findlay in town. We'll face them up at Muddy Waters Stadium Saturday night starting at 7 o'clock, 6:45 on the broadcast time here on WCSR. So join us for home Chargers football this weekend. We're live on 92.1 WCSR, also on Periscope. And I know a lot of you are saying, what's Periscope? It's the coolest thing ever. You can watch our shows anytime, whenever we do a Periscope. Sam's running that tonight and doing a great job with it. And you can follow us on Twitter at ACB on WCSR and watch the whole thing go down. Kat, before I let you go, you've met with Otter a few times. What do you make of that guy? He's been the coach here for a while now. He's been very successful. You tell us something about Coach Otterbein that, people see him on the sideline breathing fire and all the rest of it. What kind of guy is he to you when you deal with him on a week-to-week basis?
In the times that I've interviewed him, I think he is a man that deserves a lot of respect for the position that he's in. I think he definitely has the traditional head coach of a football team kind of vibe to him, but I think that he really, for me, what I read into it is that I can see a little deeper into it, is that he definitely has a passion for these guys in particular, each individual player. He analyzes them, he watches them, he wants to know how they're doing genuinely, and so I think that makes him one of the best coaches that could be here for football, particularly at this school. He's just perfect for this school because all the other coaches on the team, or not all the other coaches on the team, as well as on other teams, respect him and they want to be like him. They want to run their programs just like he does, and I think that says something, and that's why in the past the team has been so successful, and so he's going to build it up just the same way as he has, and from the ground up again, I think, compared to last year.
As a student and a fan of Hillsdale College football, we'll let you go on this one. I think the beginning of the season is so important because we had a great student section last year to start out the season. The season started to go south a little bit, and by the end of the year, there weren't a lot of kids there from the college attending the games. Don't you think it's important to get off to a good start and to kind of get the ball rolling that way?
Yeah, definitely.
Right at the beginning.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I think it's funny because our school is so different. We don't have as many students.
Mm-hmm.
Because there are a lot of intellectuals, that can kind of chop down the fan base there. I think that it's kind of difficult to get.
I'm doing my quantum physics homework. I'm not going to be able to make it to the game today.
Yeah, yeah, that's usually, that can be a common problem.
So, Kat, will you be doing the Otter interview throughout the season?
Yeah, we'll be doing Charger Comment every week. It should be up every Tuesday at about 12 o'clock.
So every Tuesday afternoon you can watch the Charger Comment on HillsdaleChargers.com, and I think it'll be right on the front page there. You'll be able to click into that and watch the interview with Kat Torres and Keith Otterbein. Kat, thank you for your time. We appreciate having you
so much.
Tonight.
Thanks for having me.
We'll get the rest of the roundtable in and get you ready for the 2015 season of Charger football right after this on Radio Hillsdale. Timeout Show is brought to you by Coach B's Driving School at CoachB'sDrivingSchool.com. Get scheduled for the 2015-16 school year. Remember, they'll work with you with whatever your schedule has in it. Coach B will work with you on all of that. Also, Performance Automotive, the Jack Smith Agency, Randy's Auto Body, and the Hillsdale Travel Center. The Charger Roundtable 2015, Brad Monastiere, Dan Bisher, Jim Eckhardt, and a little bit later on, Andy Losick. We want to thank Kat Torres for coming in just a few minutes ago. All right, guys, we can't avoid it. The team last year, 4-7 overall, 4-6 in the GLIAC North Division. We've had 8-9 months to kind of ruminate and digest it a little bit. What do you guys think went wrong last year? Why the losing season?
I think some people had more talent than we did, frankly. I mean, let's get down to basics. If you've got more talent, you're probably going to win. You know, people forget that those schools that we play are some of the best football powers in the country. And we're all in our conference week after week after week. And they're going to beat you up. We're going to beat them up, but they're going to beat us up too. And it just takes its toll. And I think that's really what happened to us as much as anything else. You can talk about the suspensions and all of those other things, but that all is part of it. When it starts to get in your head, you got a problem. So, hey, live with it, move on. It's time. I heard this rumor, we're going to start again.
Start 0-0?
That's what it is.
What about it, Brad? I mean, obviously, the Findlay game last year is a great example of, a competitive football game, but you just couldn't get stops when you needed them. And it just seems like there were moments in every game where people need to make plays, and the Chargers weren't the team making the big plays.
Jimmy talked about talent level. There's no question in the early 2000s, Grand Valley set a standard in this league that had not been reached before. Sometimes it takes a long time for that standard to sort of become not the exception but the rule. I'll give you two examples of that. Findlay's quarterback last year began his college career as a wide receiver on full scholarship at Ohio State. And I'm sorry, but you bring anyone of that kind of talent into this league, they're going to make an impact. Second example is Lake Erie College's running back. Andy, you probably remember him going crazy, and we were far from the only team he went crazy against. He was third in the country in the Harlan Hill balloting. His name's Anthony Belial. Forgive me if I'm not pronouncing his name right. And we'll see him in week 2 because he's back. Now, Findlay and Lake Erie, though they had those kind of players, they were both under 500 last year. So you can get these impact guys, and you can finish 5-6. You can't have one guy that's going to take your team to 8, 9, 10 wins in this league. The league is far too good. And if they can't outscore you, like meaning your opponent, they'll stop you. And they'll stop you when they have to stop you. I would say that one thing, if you talk about carryover from last year to this year, I feel like two things I look at. Our team is deeper and more mature this year. We've got, if depending on how you want to align our offense, we could have 10 starters back this year. And from some of the practices I've seen and the scrimmages, they look like a more mature team. They look sure of themselves. More so than last year. You had a lot of guys who were first-year starters or were maybe in a new position or had new responsibility that was new to them. There's less of that now. I'm a big believer in learning curves, just in any walk of life. I think our learning curve was high last year. I think it'll be lower this year. And I think those things can translate on the field.
I thought the defense actually, it was a weird season because the defense really struggled early on in the year. Bongo gave up some big numbers early on in the season, but as the year went along, the defense actually showed improvement. I thought Coach Blanchard did actually a pretty good job with them. But you had experience in the secondary. You had a Moynette. You had a Daniel Pittman, who were senior football players, and that's a big help. Now you've got 6 of 11 starters coming back on defense. As you look at last year, Dan, and I know you were at almost all of the games, was there anything that stood out to you about what went wrong? I've asked the other two guys. What do you think about that?
Well, I think that Jimmy's comment about talent level certainly is one of them. We saw some very talented football teams around the GLIAC last year. And what Brad said about the learning curve, I mean, there is definitely a learning curve, and we had a lot of young players last year. Plus, we had those suspensions, and just it was like the football gods weren't with us last year. We didn't have that mojo that we'd had in a couple of years in the past. You know, and this year across the country, I mean, Division II is tough. Last year, Colorado State Pueblo won the national championship, and they're from the RMAC, the Rocky Mountain Athletic Conference, and that conference has never done anything. They've been a joke, basically, and all of a sudden, you got a team that comes out of nowhere to win the national championship against Minnesota State Mankato, and you know about them, but you guys were up there when the Chargers played them in a playoff game a few years back. There's just some tough competition across the country, and certainly in the GLIAC. You're talking about this conference being so tough. I mean, Grand Valley was 6-5 last year. And, of course, Ohio Dominican went to the playoffs. They lost in, the second round?
They lost in the regional finals to Pueblo by 3 points.
By 3 points, yeah.
We lost to Ohio Dominican by 6 points.
Yeah.
That's the margin you're talking about sometimes.
Yeah, exactly. And, of course, Saginaw went to the playoffs last year. They had a quarterback and a wide receiver that were just outstanding.
That was 2 years ago. They had
that's right. That was 2 years ago.
Wide receiver is going to probably be a fantasy pick with the Green Bay Packers
now.
That's right.
And they went from, I think, 9 wins to 2.
Last year, yeah. So, it's just kind of an up and down situation in the last few years. Of course, like Brad said, several years Grand Valley dominated, but they haven't dominated in the last few years. It's just been new teams coming up. Ashland's going to be tough. You just never know about Ashland. They always talk about they're going to win the league, and but they're going to be very, very, very much improved this year.
Dan's on these message boards. He's got no friends from Ashland, I'll tell you that right now. It's a battle. Brad, you talked about some of the freshmen coming in and potentially making an impact, and I want you to walk us through all of that. But I want to start by talking about the quarterback position. Sure. This is really what everybody wants to know about. Chance Stewart was a Division I player at Wisconsin. He then went to Western Michigan. Now he's at campus at Hillsdale College. I think that got a lot of excitement around the Charger universe when he came to Hillsdale College. Where is he at in his development, and what are we looking at in terms of who you think will start under center on Saturday for the Chargers?
Well, C.J. Mifsud's going to be the starter.
Wow.
In watching their scrimmage, C.J. had a terrific command of the offense. And C.J.'s in his fifth year running the same system, and it showed. You could see things weren't moving fast for him. He's got nice mobility. He had a terrific game, as you guys remember, against Saginaw at home last year. 21 for 28, led us to a win. I think he ended a 5-game losing streak, I want to say. And CJ's got the height, the arm strength, and he's got nice mobility with his height. He's about 6'4", and can see over things, and just showed he's very comfortable with the offense. And I think when you have depth at that position, but only one guy can play, you want to see someone who has that comfort level with the offense. CJ absolutely has that. I know Otter feels very confident and comfortable with him as the starter. Regarding Chance Stewart, he's coming. He's 6'5". He's 240 pounds. You watch him throw. If you watch Phillip Rivers, the San Diego Chargers, that's who he reminds me of. Holds the ball up by his ear, got that lightning quick release, and boy, does the ball get there. He's got accuracy. He's got size. He has, as we were talking about learning curves, it's got a high learning curve to learn this offense. And you can't just pick it up in a day or two. And to Chance's credit, he was logging time with us, studying our playbook long before he needed to. He has come in with a great approach. He's like, I'm not entitled to anything here. I don't care where I've been before. I have to earn my spot. And you respect people who are recruited by Big Ten schools who will come to our 1,400-student Division II school and say, I must earn what I am given. So he gets high marks from the character standpoint, from the work ethic standpoint. He's picking things up. And, I think, obviously, ideally, you have CJ as your starter who's healthy for 11 games. If something should happen to CJ, Chance will have a chance to do his work. And I think fans are going to be thrilled to see what he can do because he's got 4 years with us. He's a redshirt freshman.
That was my question. What's his eligibility situation?
He's a redshirt freshman this year. He's got 4 full seasons, so he's got 15, 16, 17, and 18. He was recruited out of Sturgis High School by Wisconsin and then left there. They had a coaching change, as you may remember.
Sure.
He spent his true freshman season was last year at Western Michigan. And I believe from what I've read, they wanted to convert him to a different position by the end of spring ball. And, well, he's a quarterback. So here's an opportunity here for him to be a quarterback, not too far from home. He's had family with connections to the college. So there's familiarity there that I think was comforting for him.
See, I thought he had only 2 years of eligibility after this year, but he's going to have 3 full years
Correct.
after this year. So that's a great, hopefully promise for the future. The guy that's maybe the odd man out could be Mark LaPrairie, who was your starter last year and who
Right.
I really like.
Yep.
Personally, I like him a lot. But whereas running back and defensive tackle, you can cycle guys in throughout the game, you usually have one quarterback, and that makes it tough.
And Otter will tell you he feels very lucky to have the depth of that
Right.
position that we do. We've got a redshirt freshman, Brendan Rolfs, who's a very good player at Chippewa Valley, which is a great program on the east side of Detroit. He throws a beautiful ball. I mean, I love watching him throw the ball in practice. Stephen Fisick, I believe is how you pronounce his name. Forgive me if I'm pronouncing that wrong. Brunswick, Ohio is a very strong program down there, and he was excellent. And he's gotten raves from his teammates about how he's done in the captain's practices, and he throws a nice ball too. We have enviable depth at that position. Normally, you suffer an injury at the quarterback position, you're in trouble. And we can go to some people now, if necessary, that will hold the spot and will not hurt you.
One other thought on CJ. That's a heck of a story that CJ Mifsud is starting this season as the Chargers quarterback, because he was buried on that depth chart. They actually moved him to wide receiver, you guys will remember, a couple of seasons ago. There seemed to be no prospect that he would ever start the year as the quarterback number 1 for Hillsdale College. And the fact that he hung in there and stayed with it that long, yeah, that tells me something about that kid right there. I'm very happy to hear that he earned that spot.
He doesn't quit fighting.
No.
And he will give it everything he's got. We all remember his brother Anthony was a very good quarterback for us. Boy, did Anthony do a nice job his 2 years starting.
Is Anthony Mifsud the president of the United States yet?
No.
You got to be 35,
I like
right?
his chances against Kanye in 2020. I'm going to say that right now. And then
a nice pop culture reference there, Brad. Thank you.
And Jimmy, you can speak to Dave Mifsud and what a terrific wide receiver he was back in the 80s. And that's so much of what we're about is tradition and family, and to see it playing out is such a treat. And the success CJ has, boy, I tell you, that the kids, they couldn't be happier for him. You're happy the team's doing well. You're happy for the individual. And those are the people you root for.
What about Dave Mifsud, Jimmy?
What a great kid.
Yeah.
A kid. He's not a kid anymore. He's the head football coach at Jackson County Western, who just had their first win last Friday night, and he was pumped about that. I know he runs a lot with my my son-in-law. So he's pretty close to Hillsdale College. My son-in-law's pretty close to Hillsdale College through Dave. And they have a lot of conversations, and Dave Misfit's a great, great guy.
I've got one for the research team. How many dads have had 2 starting quarterbacks at Hillsdale College?
How about 2 starting anything?
Yeah, that's pretty good. That's pretty good.
We might as well put Brad to work.
Yeah, I think he could figure it out. I actually went through the archives a lot this week, and I'll get to that in a little bit. 10 returning starters, guys, on offense. Obviously, you've got some symmetry up there on the offensive line, and that's key, too. Defensively, you have 6 of the 11 starters. I'm thinking about the defensive backfield where you do lose Moynette and Pittman. But, you look up and you see that Joe Duff is one of the captains. He stepped up last year in a lot of different situations. Brad, who are some of the freshmen? We'll get to some of the vets here in a second, but who are some of the freshmen that may make an impact this year for this team?
Well, when you talk about freshmen, there's 2 guys that fans are going to want to keep an eye on, and we're talking true freshmen. They just got here from high school. Dan Shanley is a linebacker who we have right now. He's going to be the starting middle linebacker on Saturday.
Awesome.
And he had a hit in the scrimmage that was impressive. Came right up the middle, jumped the gap, and stopped the running back in his tracks. And he reminds me, and I think I may be guilty of associating him with the jersey number. He's number 40. We remember Brett Pasche. He was pretty good. I
remember him well.
I think Dan's got some Brett Pasche in him. And if he does, boy, are we going to benefit from that. Another kid to keep an eye on in the defensive backfield is number 1, Merrick Canada. And, Andy, you may have heard me talk about Merrick before. Earlier in my life, I started my career at Clarkston as a sports writer. And Merrick comes to us from Clarkston High School, who only won 27 games in a row to end his career. He was a 2-time state champion and was a big-time player on those 2 teams. He's got range, he's got size, he's 6'1". I believe he projects as a safety. And you talked about Joe Duff. You know, he moved from corner to safety.
Okay.
Joe has worked his tail off this summer to get bigger and stronger, and he's a great fit for the safety position. And on the other side with cornerback, you got Todd Fricke, who's one of the fastest players, and has been for years. But Dan Shanley, Merrick Cannett are two true freshmen who are going to get in the mix and are going to help us this year. And as you know, our coaching staff do not like to play true freshmen. And because these guys are in the mix, it shows you how impressive they've been in camp.
Bish, I bet, and Eckhardt, you two both probably like a true freshman middle linebacker. That sounds pretty good, huh?
I like that idea.
I remember another linebacker we had playing for us, Brad, Tom Cordy.
He was okay.
Yeah, he was okay.
Yeah, right.
Yeah, pretty good linebacker. We've always seemed to have some good linebackers. I mean, Otter himself was a linebacker, and a pretty darn good one at that. Outstanding. I was going to ask you myself, I wanted to know about the left tackle. Who's playing the left tackle position? Who's going to start at left tackle?
Well, he's a returning starter. His name is Jake Bull, and he's a sophomore this year. Was a redshirt freshman starter last year. And he's one of those guys who you throw a guy, and that's a key position on the offensive line.
Right.
You're protecting the quarterback's blind side. You're probably going against the other team's best pass rusher. The coaches absolutely love his combination of strength and athleticism. And he wears number 66. We had another pretty good 66 back a few years ago. Who was a guy who makes a dime or two for the Arizona Cardinals right now.
Exactly.
The coaches will throw those two names in the same sentence. Now, I think that's probably unfair pressure to put on Jake, quite frankly. And Jake actually signed with us as a tight end. At signing day that year, he was a tight end. So, but Jake has really settled in at left tackle and is going to give us that. You're just going to be solid out there. And he's gotten bigger, stronger, and kept his footwork well, kept his quickness well. And Jimmy, as you know, that's the key to good line play, is to have the strength and the footwork. You don't lag in either one. And he has just only gotten better in both areas.
You have got to have good footwork in order to play offensive line. I don't care who you are. And in fact, Howard Mudd, God love him, what an offensive man he was, and still is. But all those years that he coached for the Cleveland Browns and the Indianapolis Colts and all the other San Francisco 49ers, and it was offensive line footwork. And I'm telling you, he's produced some incredible linemen over the years.
You know, Dan, a guy I'm excited to watch, and hopefully we'll see him Saturday, although there's no guarantee, is Andrew Wilcox, who I just talked to Jeff yesterday at little kid football practice. And by the way, Jeff Wilcox and Dean Apfalter and that whole crew over there, they do a heck of a job with that rec league football program, and they deserve a lot of credit.
Outstanding, yes.
But anyway, you know Andrew Wilcox. You had him in baseball a little bit. I just really like that kid, and he's battling for. Jeff said he's right on the bubble. Maybe getting a little bit of playing time, and that'd be pretty cool, wouldn't it, Dan?
Oh, that would be outstanding. I remember him in youth baseball, and he was a good player back then, and I watched his development over the years, playing football for the Hornets and playing basketball for the Hornets, and he's played in some big games in high school, and I've watched him in practice once or twice last year and this year. And he's coming right along. I could see him turning into a very good wide receiver for the Chargers. He has that X factor about him, and that's what
he has. He's fearless, and he's chippy, and he's pretty tough,
and he's confident.
That's right. And those are good things for receivers to have. He's not going to run a 4.2 40 or anything like that. I haven't run a 4.2 40 since probably my senior year of high school. I mean, but. But Andrew Wilcox, athletically, he's pretty strong, and you could see him out there, and it's just fun to see those local guys get a chance, and who knows, maybe he'll get an opportunity this year. A guy a lot of people talk about, and Brad, maybe we've talked about him too much, and maybe we were a little unfair to him early in his career, is Bennett Lewis.
Bennett Lewis.
I think you've got Joe Glendenning, and you saw this next kid coming in and had the quickness and maybe the potential to be that kind of a guy, and last year he struggled a little bit, I felt like, throughout much of the season, just with trying to stay healthy and stay out onto the field. it would be so cool to see him stay healthy for 5-6 weeks in a row to finally see what the kid can do, because I think he could be a difference maker.
Well, he's got that talent. There's no question about it. He is an impact player on offense. And you look at his first 2 games last year, he's seriously impacted those games. Well over 100 yards rushing. I believe he had 5 touchdowns in the first 2 games of the season. He had a tough time coming back from injury, which everyone handles injuries differently.
Yeah.
I mean, you can't cut and you can't absorb hits and you can't get up and come at him the next time as easily when you've been injured. I don't care who you are. It's nothing against Bennett whatsoever.
No, not at all. Right.
Yeah, so he's, from what I've seen, he's completely healthy. What I really like is get him screen passes, get him in space, because he can make people miss, he can shrug a hit off. And I think our linemen, talk about quarterbacks knowing the offense. The linemen got to know the offense, and they can get to the spot, open up some holes for him. I think you're going to be able to see Bennett make an impact in the passing game with the short little passes that we like to throw, that when our offense is in rhythm, those things just are coming.
That's right.
And so you've also got a redshirt freshman who's entering that mix named Joe Reverman, who played at a really good program at Grand Ledge up by Lansing. Joe is similarly built to Bennett and has got a very similar skill set. He can get in space and make people miss. And so I think there's more depth there. And you also bring back Wade Wood, who's that strong, get you 2 yards, move the pile a little bit. Jack Wiseman is he's out with an injury for now.
No.
Yeah, he's not sure what his timetable is, but Jack he had a 50-some-odd yard run against Grand Valley last year, if you guys remember. So Otter's got some options in that backfield, and hey, a really good running back's quarterback's best friend.
Yeah, for sure. No question about that. So looking forward to Bennett Lewis scoring some touchdowns this year and kind of moving the chains. As you look through the rest of it in the receiving core, you've got Fote as one of the team captains. He's playing that H-back position. Yep. Keegan Smith is a threat, also as a receiver from that tight end spot. On the outside, Haley's graduated and all the rest of it. So who are you going to have for the receiver position?
Well, John Haley's back.
Thank God.
Yeah.
I got my notes messed up. So Haley's a threat outside.
Yes.
And he was having a monster season last year for a while.
Yeah, he set the single-game school record, 268 receiving yards against Lake Erie last year. And I don't care if you're playing the weak sisters of the poor, you still got to catch the ball and you still got to dodge people. And John he's certainly the number one target you're looking at on offense. And you need that guy who not only has the ability but the makeup to accept that role. And John has that. Looking at a couple of younger players at that position, I always like to give you someone to kind of buy low and sell high on. I'm going to give you Taylor Cohn. He's number 10.
I liked him last year.
And he got in there a little bit for us last year, and I think he's approaching this year with the mentality of, I want more balls coming my way, and I'm going to go and make plays. And he's got nice size. He's about 6'2". He kind of go over the middle, take that hit, fall forward, get you the 7 yards on 3rd and 4 type of thing, and give you that option. Joe Schrebernack, who we remember from a couple of years ago, they've moved him to tight end, so he's more the true tight end that'll be in there with Keegan. And boy, he's another big target, 6'4". Has shown he can make the catch and take the hit, keep the chains moving. So CJ and whomever the quarterback is, they have some options that, as a whole, the group isn't as proven as the group of A.J. Kegg and Mike Blanchard and Andre Holmes that we all remember. Nick Garica. You remember him, how good he was. So, but I think that these guys, there are catches to be had in this offense. And it's just who's going to go and get it? Who's going to go and make plays? And you mentioned Alex Fote, and I really have to focus on him for a second because he is a leader. And he has a passion for this team that anytime you're around him, you see it. And he's a guy who is going to love Charger football well beyond this year. Right. He just is made up of that stuff. It runs through his blood. I think that translates over in game days. I mean, he's just the guy who he stirs the drink from the leadership standpoint. The guys fall in line behind him, and it's special to have seen him grow and develop into this.
Brad, we're going to do a final segment with just Dan and Jim here, both of them no longer on the radio side this year, so we're going to kind of say farewell to you at this point. But before we do that, a lot of night games this year.
Yeah.
3 of the first 4 games are at home, so you can kind of come out early on, catch some night football. You're not going to have a conflict with Wolverines this week because they play Thursday night. It's just we say it every year. I'm just going to keep saying it. People that go to Charger football games often tell me, why have I not started doing that a long time ago? It's that cool of an experience. The quality of football is way beyond what people expect, and it's a great game atmosphere.
We really try to make it like that. We try to make it about substance over style, and I think that's very consistent with the mission of the college, where we're not going to be flashy. We're not going to set fireworks off every time someone gets a first down. We're not going to have Frisbee contests at every timeout. You're going to see outstanding young men leaving everything they've got on the field who are coached by outstanding men. And these people are of the utmost character, and they do honor to the Lightning Bolt. They truly do. I would say that if I didn't have the logo on my shirt, and because you see it every day. You see it in how they go about their business. They're very focused. They don't let themselves get too down. Adversity happens, they leave it behind, and they're going on to the next thing. And that's something that Otter wants the guys to, they can come away with the wins or the losses. But what he really wants them is to come away with the skills to succeed in life. And I think it's a privilege for us to have been a very small part of watching this journey for all these guys over all these years. This is my 11th season I'm going into. And boy, have I been lucky to see some of the best individuals that I've known. And this Team 123, which is what we are, the 123rd team in the history of our school, lives up to that. And I can't wait to have some fun and see how we do. I think it's going to be fun.
Brad, thank you for all of the great insight, talking about the players in a way that only you can, and we look forward to seeing you on Saturday.
Hey, thanks for all your support, Andy and Jim and Dan. You guys are the best. So, Jimmy, we're going to miss you like crazy, buddy.
Hey, thanks, buddy.
Brad Monastiere, the Assistant Athletic Director and SID at Hillsdale College. When we come back, walk down memory lane with Dan Bisher and Jim Eckhardt right after this.